Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Higher or Lower, brought to you by oddschecker, Spreadex and Sporting Index. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Worth from WhoScored and football tipster and top of the table. I'm delighted for you.
Oh yeah,
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. What are you happy for again?
Jack Wright. Yeah, you are top of the tree. It was another bad week for me. 58% for you now, 57% for myself, and I think 54% for you.
Yeah.
So it's tight at the top. We're all averaging better than 50%, which is all we can hope for. This is the in case you're wondering who we are and what we're talking about. This is the show where we look at Spreadex and Sporting Index's spread betting markets ahead of the weekend's football and preview the games by looking at the midpoints and saying if we think the eventuality or the makeup will be higher or lower than that figure. And we're going to kick off, as I always like to do, and as we often do in the games, with the Championship. With Friday Night Football comes at you from Coventry against Birmingham, two teams that ground shared, with Coventry playing at St Andrews recently. Previously, Coventry are favourites for this one. Neither side having a great campaign so far in terms of points picked up, but Coventry heavy favourites for this. 0.8 to sell and 1 to buy. So the midpoint is 0.9. This is the supremacy market, where it is the amount of goals that the favourite wins over the underdog, and Coventry very much the favourites here. So 0.9, this means if we go lower at the 0.9, you are backing Birmingham or a draw. Higher is a Coventry win. 3, 2, 1. I thought that might happen.
Yeah.
I thought that might happen. Lead us off with some good stats stuff, please, Jack.
Ooh, wow.
There you go.
Pushed me into it there. Would this come into your category of a local derby?
No.
No, it's not. So
It's
it's okay for a Friday night game.
It's a local game. But I don't think there's much animosity between the two fans.
Okay. That's
Sorry.
fine, yeah. I know it's one of those things you say that it can't be a derby if it's not.
Yeah, but there have been some weird ones recently, because they now do this thing where like you get bussed in from a certain place and you have to pick up your ticket on the bus. So like they found ways around it now. So I don't know if it necessarily rings true.
All these rules we're having to rip up.
But having said that, next Tuesday I'm going to Reading versus Oxford on a Tuesday night, and that categorically isn't a derby. So maybe it is still true.
Maybe so.
Reading fans might sing about us.
In their head. So,
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah, good job, Dan's going far away from that. Anyway, we digress and we move on. Coventry, I fancy Coventry, basically because I can't back Birmingham. Because since the no-fear approach of Wayne Rooney has come to town, or the city, then it's been disastrous, hasn't it, really, to be fair? No better ways around it than that. Mark Robbins did say his side was schooled by Ipswich Town. Not the first side to be saying that or feeling that, and I've got a feeling they won't be the last, unfortunately, in a couple of weeks' time. But they have struggled to replicate the form of last season, understandably, I guess, with the fact that they're missing Gus Hamer and Victor Gyökeres, and big holes to try and fill in that side. But picked up a couple of wins, only one defeat at home as well. They were undefeated in 3 before that loss to the Tractor Boys. So I feel that they've got enough here to edge this one, because it just seems that Birmingham are in a bit of free fall. Wayne Rooney himself said that they were lucky to get a draw at home to Rotherham, and if you're in that kind of situation at the moment, that doesn't bode well, I don't think, for a tougher challenge, which this certainly does represent. I think Coventry possibly suffered a bit of a hangover, cliche it is, from the playoffs and the loss of those key players. So I think they can put it together here. So as far as Birmingham under Rooney is concerned, it's 1 win in 8, 5 defeats, lost all 4 of their away games under him, and even before that they've now lost 7, conceding 2 or more goals in 6 of them. So all points towards this one being a Coventry win. They have got a good record against Birmingham, even when they were playing both games at Birmingham due to the ground share situation that you talked about. So yeah, I'll go with Coventry in this one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Birmingham are in trouble of possibly sliding into a relegation battle, which, when you consider where they were when John Eustace was sacked, is pretty crazy. Coventry are one of the biggest data outliers in the league so far this season. Their open play XG, according to Opta Analyst, is 22.16. Their open play goals is just 13, so they're 9 shy, which I think in itself will right itself. They've got Matty Godden, who's a good finisher. They've got Haji Wright, who hasn't shown it yet, but I'm pretty confident will start to score goals at some point. No shame at all by being outplayed by Ipswich and conceding one of the best goals I've ever seen from Wes Burns. But there is shame, I think, in Birmingham not only not beating Rotherham at home, but probably being the worst side of the two. The performances are really diving. And I don't know, given that the new owners, and Rooney is clearly their guy, normally you look at this situation and be like, is he coming under pressure? But it feels very hard for me to expect these American owners who've gone out and hired Rooney out of DC United to get their like big name appointment in, who are going to turn around and be like, well, we made a mistake here. So, yeah, I'm concerned about Birmingham. I think Coventry are one of the strongest fancies I've got in the EFL this weekend.
Yeah, you guys have kind of covered all the stats. The only thing I've really got to offer is that if the Championship had started when Rooney took over, Birmingham would be rock bottom with just one win. I mean, Coventry haven't been much better in that time either. They'd been 19th with only 2 wins. But yeah, I'm just staying as clear as possible from Birmingham, I think. Yeah. It's very bleak at the moment for them.
I do like that. So the data outliers are good to follow. So I think you tend to get a little bit of value on that side of it. Maybe Spice Coventry are quite strong favourites, but that line just about fits in well enough for us to be able to play.
What would you have done if the midpoint was 1?
That would have been a tough one.
Or 1.05.
I can't see Coventry racking up too many goals. So I think that could have changed it, but
marginal for you.
Marginal, yeah.
Cracking on with the EFL now. Saturday's early game is between Sunderland and West Brom. Sunderland sacked Tony Mowbray in the week, so they're looking for a new manager. I assume one won't be in for this game. West Brom, off the back of that defeat against Leicester, where they equalised very late through Josh Maja before being done on the break by Harry Winks. So West Brom needing to find their form again. 2 teams with genuine top 6 aspirations. Who have gone through very different periods in the last few weeks. West Brom going very well. Sunderland not so much. The total goal line here is 2.6 is the midpoint, so 2.5 to sell, 2.7 to buy. Are we going higher or lower? 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness gracious me!
I'm generally surprised by that.
Oh
really?
My
yeah,
goodness.
I'm generally surprised by that.
Right, Dan, you can take us away here.
Please.
It's not overly high though, is it? 2.6.
It's not overly high.
Yeah, but
it's also not overly low.
This is West Brom. You know?
Yeah, it is. But this is copped in the last 2 between these 2 sides.
Historical.
Historical. We love a bit of history. But also Sunderland at home. Well, not just at home. They average the 2nd highest shots in the league, so you can expect that to continue here. They're averaging 16.6. Loads of shots. You'd like to think leads to loads of goals, right? In Sunderland home games this season, their average, the games that have been at Sunderland have averaged 3.22 goals. That's enough for us to win.
Easy as that.
Simple.
Jack?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Mowbray? You think like it's a kind of big one here because what we're going to get from Sunderland are much of the same. I think from what I've done research-wise, Mike Dodds is the man going to be in charge of this one.
Doddsy,
yeah, yeah, from the Midlands, so he's kind of come through like Birmingham's Youth Academy, and I think that's the process that Sunderland want to take, isn't it? Someone that's going to develop the youth. So obviously he's going to be holding the reins until they get someone else in. But
yeah, I think with Mowbray, he came in at a time last season when Alex Neil had just left them in the lurch a bit early in the campaign, and they needed someone to come in immediately and steady the ship a bit. And I think he was probably seen as being a bit of a glorified interim who did a way better job than they anticipated. And given the way, if you look at Christian Speakman, who's their sporting director, who basically only recruits players who are teenagers or in their early 20s and wants to play this very exuberant style of football, even though Mowbray is a manager, I think it's stopped now. There was a period a couple of years ago where people used to pin him down as being a bit of a dinosaur head coach because he was a Grizzly centre-back, I think, whereas actually he is really progressive. He's all about youth development, plays exciting attacking football. And I think he was never going to be the long-term answer. So it's not a massive surprise to me that quite soon after their first poor run under Mowbray, they've taken the decision to change manager, because I don't think he was ever the blueprint for what they wanted to do, or he was never the plan. Having said that, I do think he's incredibly harshly done by to have been sacked when he's been sacked. And again, Sunderland, one of the big data outliers here, where especially in recent weeks, their attacking numbers haven't really dipped, but they're not scoring goals consistently. It doesn't help that maybe some of their good early season form was built upon Jack Clark getting on the ball on the left-hand side, cutting inside and firing into the far corner. Probably can't do that every game, even though he is very good.
Yeah.
But in this one, I just think Sunderland's home games as well, really high scoring. The last time out they were beaten 2-1 by Huddersfield. That would have won here. 3-1 Birmingham would have won here. 3-1 Norwich would have won here. 4-0 Borough. So you're going back to October the 4th, where they beat Watford 2-0 for a home game at the Stadium of Light, which wouldn't have gone over 2.5 or wouldn't have made up 3 or more. So with West Brom, Carlos Corberán is a pragmatist for sure. There's no denying that. But in the games, and we see him kind of retreat, his teams normally retreat into their shell a little bit when they're ahead. But we've seen against Leicester last time, against Ipswich as well, against Southampton, against Hull, when they played teams who are possession-based. Weirdly, that's when they seem to press and try and wrestle back the ball. So I think from a stylistic point of view, this could be quite chaotic, more so than maybe a lot of West Brom games are, and that might yield goals.
Yeah, we were talking before we started recording, didn't we, about that couldn't quite believe what we saw last week with Corberan at 1-1 against Leicester. Not a bad point, and they went complete gung-ho in those final moments. Dan was celebrating and we weren't. So, it was a strange one. But no, I think you've said everything. I was just interested, certainly in your views on the Mowbray situation and where they go with it. I think, I agree with what you said there, totally. And I think Kim Hellberg is the favourite at the moment, which doesn't tend to mean too much, but we certainly see the direction they're looking to travel in there. The key thing for me would be just interesting to see how the players react to it, given the fact that they all seem to absolutely adore Mowbray. So will it be do this one for the old gaffer, or it will be a little bit of a subdued one? But no, I think just about there'll be goals in it, because the record over the season certainly dictates that. And I think it's three or more in the last 4 for Sunderland at home, and 7 of 9 total this season, which would suggest enough that there will be an open up play and goals in this. Certainly what we've seen away from home from West Brom as well.
Agreed.
On to the Premier League, finally, we've made it. Crystal Palace hosting Liverpool. Palace beaten at home last time on Wednesday evening against Bournemouth. Liverpool getting over the line against Sheffield United by a 2-0 scoreline as well. This is time of first goal we're looking at here. So this is when the first goal is scored in terms of minutes. The midpoint is 31.5. So lower here means an early goal, or a goal basically before the half-an-hour mark. Higher would be a more cagey start with the goal coming after the half-an-hour mark. So time of first goal, Palace against Liverpool. 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow.
Jack.
I am surprised.
You are surprised?
I thought all 3 of us would be the same again.
Me too.
We needed to change it up, so here I am.
You just diversifying.
Yeah, that's your reason.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the reason. I knew you were going that way. I went there.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about Roy Hodgson a little while ago, and the fact that he wasn't a happy bunny after that defeat last night, and came out quite spiky. As we've seen him before, when he's under a little bit of pressure, he does tend to lash out a little bit, doesn't he, in his style. Kind of turned on the fans a little bit, saying that they've been spoiled. Yeah, and their expectations were a little bit unrealistic, which doesn't tend to go down too well. I think you then quickly having a quick word with the media guy said, "Oh, right, yeah, I need to backtrack a little bit on that one. So we just need them with us." So we'll see what happens. But my view totally on this is that the quick flurry of games that were had, early kick-off here in this one as well, my view on Hodgson is that he is generally known as a pragmatist. He does tend to look to sit up defensively and get a foothold in games. We've seen that at Palace at home this season, which has been dreadful as far as goals concerned, the worst in the league. And I just feel that when his back's to the wall and he's a bit under pressure, I think he's just going to try and be completely and uber defensive in this one. Even more so if Eze's not playing, whether he's going to be fit enough or not, and they'll chuck him in, could make a bit of a difference to it. But I just feel that he will certainly look to keep it very, very tight as possible, and delay possibly the inevitable for as long as possible in this one. I say we're only 1 win in 8 for Palace. Got booed off, just in terrible form at this moment in time. So, I just feel that they've failed to score in 4 Premier League games at home, Palace. No side have done that more. And 3 goals in the first half in the opening 7 games, which is testament, albeit in the last couple. But, it's for me, that's how I see it panning out, and that's why I've gone for the higher.
Why is Jack wrong?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the traders know exactly what they're doing with this market, because the average time of first goal across the whole Premier League this season is 31 minutes.
Okay.
So, yeah, tough. But I think...
So are you going lower because of the 0.5?
Yeah. No, I'm going lower because this is Liverpool, and Liverpool's average away from home is scoring their first goal in the 18th minute. So that's quite nice. There's even a little bit of leeway there. If they do want to leave it a tiny bit later, that's fine by me. They've scored in every game this season. I mean, you've talked about Palace. There's no reason why Liverpool won't score. Here, their average time of first goal in any game is the 29th minute, so All of the averages point to this.
When did they score
being
last
low.
night? I can't remember.
Yes, that maybe a little outlier in the average, but 37, right? It's not that much higher. not that that's how we're playing this game, but no, lower for sure.
Okay, for sure.
Basically, with Liverpool, you know what you're going to get in terms of the way they set up for games. It's very rarely a cagey start, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if this was a game in the same way that it kind of feels like Fulham have ended Steve Cooper's reign at Nottingham Forest. If this was the game where, up against a side he managed not that long ago, if Liverpool were to do to Palace something that would make it very hard for Roy Hodgson to keep his job. So in which case, this obviously plays into the idea that there could be an early goal. Having said that, I watched I watched a couple of games last night. I don't know if you did, but I watched. You're busy getting your hair cut. I watched Sheffield United against Liverpool last night, and I was surprised how 3 times in the first half an hour or so, Sheffield United got in on the break. McAtee should have scored. Archer putting it through to him. McAtee forcing a save out Kelleher. There's another occasion where Archer got on the ball on the left and it couldn't quite get a shot off. But their high line was exposed a couple of times, and it feels like in that sense maybe this is the kind of game where, even though I don't really fancy Palace here, they might get their opportunities on the break from an early standpoint, because it's not always the case, but sometimes it's those kind of chances come later in the game as the defensive line moves up. So I don't think it's beyond question that Palace could score early in this game, but I think it's a game where Liverpool could rack up a scoreline too. So it kind of appeals for me in 2 senses, this one. So I'm going lower there. So that's 3 games covered. Now, the big title clash of the weekend has to be the big title clash is Aston Villa, who host Arsenal. Villa have now won 14 games in a row. Manchester City didn't have a shot off the 11th minute against them on Wednesday's victory, where Leon Bailey's deflected effort wasn't lucky at all when you look at the actual balance of the game. So Arsenal here still favourites, as you'd expect, top of the league. Villa with a chance to go within 1 point of them if they win this one. The Arsenal favourites, 0.3 to sell, 0.5 to buy. So 0.4 is the midpoint with Spreadex and Sporting Index. Are we going higher or lower here? 3, 2, 1. All 3 going lower.
Up to Villa.
This line didn't move overnight.
Shocking.
Which I find really hard to wrap my head around. Villa were putting one of the best. I've spoken to 2 Villa fans this morning who told me that they think it's the best, and in their mid to early 30s, and they think it's the best Villa performance in their lifetime last night.
Wow.
Which I guess makes sense. Like, you played against the best team in the world, treble winners, and you've played them off the park in both boxes. You've created loads of chances. You haven't conceded many. Only 2 shots in the game, both from the same phase of play. So, and Arsenal come here off the back of a 4-3 win at Luton, where obviously their dominance in the game was more than the scoreline suggests, but they needed a 97th minute winner to get it. So I'm kind of surprised here that the line hasn't moved. I think a lot of Villa's form at home has been a little bit unsustainable in terms of, if you look at how much they're overperforming their XG. Having said that, they score loads of goals at home and they normally win by 2 or 3 anyway, so it's not like that really matters necessarily in terms of what happens. Their away form isn't great, but I think we've got a long enough period of time here under Unai Emery to see that, for whatever reason, there is a massive tangible shift in their performance level at home and away. One concern, of course, is they played on Wednesday night and Arsenal played on Tuesday, which has an impact. Another concern is how much does it take out of you to put in that kind of performance against Manchester City? But I think if it was either, which is what I'm having here, if one choice is Arsenal or the other choice is draw or Villa, it's this hand that I'm looking at. Dan?
Yeah, for sure. The last team to beat Villa at home was Arsenal. But obviously we're just ignoring that. I have also been thinking for a few weeks now that it is unsustainable what Villa are doing, but I think last night I have to just give up the stubbornness and just admit that Villa are an unbelievable side, particularly at home. As you said, to do that to the best team in the world is incredible, and all credit to Villa. Unai Emery doing a very, very good job. And although, as you said, Arsenal had a good result against Luton, I don't know, Villa will be coming into this full of confidence, arguably more than Arsenal. I know they were buoyant at the end of the game, but surely behind the scenes they're thinking, oh God, we only just scraped past Luton. No disrespect to Luton, of course.
Of course.
But
it's so funny how people do that, isn't it? Yeah. You just disrespect something like no disrespect.
yeah, no offence, but I'm going to offend you as much as I possibly
Yeah.
can here. No, I love Luton. They're just not as good as Aston Villa, and that's why Villa are going to get the better of Arsenal here.
Simple as that, Jack.
Fortunately for me, I didn't have a hair appointment booked last night, so I was able to watch this game in its entirety.
I watched United Chelsea. So I mean, I watched Liverpool, Sheffield United, and United Chelsea. I do like those 7:30, 8:15.
Yeah,
Very
great,
good, aren't
isn't
they?
it?
Yeah. I took the opportunity
Against
to watch.
modern football, apart from that, which I quite like.
But this game was absolutely superb watching, to be fair. And it's a good job it's not next week when I think Sam's on the show, because if he was on this week, we'd probably have to extend it while he eulogized.
I just did a pod with him this morning, and he was one of the two people who said it was the best Villa performance. I should have said, actually. One of the two was Sam Tighe, who is on this show. He said it was the best he'd ever seen.
Yeah, they were absolutely superb, and you kind of expected it maybe to peter out a little bit. All that energy, all that work rate they were putting in, and they were creating chance after chance, and you thought it's going to stop. And at the start of the second half, there was that little moment where Man City started to look a little bit more like themselves, and Villa just went, no, you're not having it, and they grasped the nettle and took over again and was absolutely scintillating, superb stuff. You know, the fans loved it, quite right, obviously, which helps. You know, that Villa Park, the old school kind of ground, just has that atmosphere to drive them on, which has to help. But you know, as we said, 14 consecutive home wins. They're blowing everyone apart, really, from whoever they're playing there. And so the fact they limited City to 2 shots, which were in the same phase of play, or the same attack, then that's just incredible stuff. I didn't think I'd see a day in the Premier League where that would happen. Like Pep said, the better team won, and for Pep to come out and talk how he talked after, I think spoke volumes as far as just how good Villa were on the day, and so they were physical and controlled all aspects of the game. So absolutely fantastic. 22 shots against City as well, which I think is a record against a Pep side in the top flight of, in the major leagues since he's been a manager. And also, you look at Arsenal conceded 2 goals from corners against Luton, which I think in itself, as much as Villa's superb play in open play was breathtaking, they've got excellent delivery from both sides, from free kicks, from corners, and that could cause big problems for Arsenal, I feel, who would have expended a lot of energy themselves, probably more than they expected, in having to take it right to the final seconds to beat Luton. So pressure on Raya as well, obviously, after his performance. Yeah. And I think the Villa Park crowd will certainly test his mental resolve in that one. And obviously Unai Emery against his old club will look to get one over them in the way he did for the first time against Pep. So absolutely, I think it should be an absolutely cracking game again. Yeah. And one to look forward to, and one I think that Villa don't lose, which is what this selection from all of us is.
Wednesday, the 18th of December, 2019.
Yeah.
Oxford had 18 shots against Manchester City in the cup, and that at the time was a record. Congratulations to Unai Emery for beating, I think, for the 3rd time that record since then. But it was a great day. Emi Martinez, obviously inspired by his former team doing so well back in 2019. On to Luton.
Fair play for turning that into Oxford.
Thank you very much.
Was very good.
On to Luton, Man City. Luton aside, Oxford have a pretty poor record against Man City here. So we're looking at total goals as the market. We're going to do 2 markets here. Total goals the first. Luton obviously fresh off that 7-goal thriller against Arsenal. The goal line is high, as you'd expect, with I think Man City are 6-on favourites to win this game. That's the best price with oddschecker. 3.4 to sell, 3.6 to 5, so 3.5 is the line here. Higher, 4 goals or more. Lower would be 3 goals or fewer. 3, 2, 1. I'm on my own.
Yeah. Not a bad call, though.
Thank you. Luton yet to be beaten by more than a single goal at home this season. And I don't think they're going to score very many goals against Manchester City. I think the game will be tighter than maybe many people think it will be. I think for whatever reason at Kenilworth Road this season, having been poor there last season in the Championship, they are playing very well. City's struggles coming to this game are pretty obvious. Their defensive record at the moment is really poor. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the focus of this game is Pep trying to ensure that they are just way less leaky against a side who scored 3 goals in midweek against Arsenal. So, I think when you're going lower here, you're getting 1-0, you're getting 2-1, you're getting 2-0, you're getting 3-0. Those, in my mind, are the most likely scorelines, how this game is going to finish. So I think it's so easy to look at Luton and be like, City will batter them. But if this was at the Etihad, I'd be on board with that. But I'm not entirely sure at this stage that's fair. So even though I'm sure there's going to be loads of evidence and data suggesting that City beat promoted teams by more than this and whatever, I think looking at these two sides, it might be a bit cagier than we would think. So yeah, damn.
Well, no, the City against the promoted side so far this season would be on your side.
There we go. Thank you very much. 3-0 opening day, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then 2-1 against Sheffield United. Which is lovely for me to start off my argument against you with that, but there you go. It's almost Christmas. There's your
Thank you
present.
very much.
Wow.
I need to do some shopping. It freaks me out whenever anyone mentions Christmas. I've got so much to do.
You've got a couple of minutes now. If you want to do a
I
bit
know,
of
that's what I'm doing.
well done.
We'll take it.
Don't look at my screen.
Luton conceding 2 goals per game, which I know is not enough, but that's the average, and City are far from average. I think Pep, I said this last week, will be desperate for them to just prove that this is just a little bump in the road. They're going to come back and kind of push on from here. So I'm expecting them to just come flying out. And we know that City can score 4, 5, 6. Haaland could probably do that all on his own. Rodri and Stone's likely to be back. That's massive. I mean, I don't know what would have happened last night if Rodri was in. I'd argue the scoreline probably would have been a little bit different.
But then I'd say on the balance of play last night, 1-0 probably flattered City. So
yeah. You're not wrong. You spoke about City being 1-6 on. Luton are 18-1 to get the win here, which
I backed them at that price against Arsenal midweek.
Yeah,
got a brief bit of a run.
Yeah, and that would have been, I think when I looked into it, would have been the 3rd biggest upset
really in
Premier League history. So obviously that was 16-1, I think, was it? Or was it 18 as well?
It was
18, so if they could get the win here, that's, I don't know it off the top of my head, but that could be the biggest upset in Premier League history.
Yeah.
Not going to happen though, is it?
It'd be seismic, wouldn't it, if it happened? Who knows? We don't really care, do we? We just want goals.
Just want goals.
Yeah, simple as that. And we've seen it like this week that Luton has certainly got the tools to cause teams problems. And City, at this moment in time, are allowing teams the opportunity to cause them problems. Rodri back will help that out a little bit, but they've still conceded 4 against Chelsea and 3 against Tottenham with Rodri in the side, as Pep did point out, I think, before the game against Villa. So my thinking on this one is a bit like beware the wounded animal kind of thing. That if they'd had better results in recent times, I think this might have been one of those games where Pep would have kind of taken a 2-0 or a controlled performance and controlled result. I just feel that they will need to try and put out a little bit of a statement here. I think they will come for it. I think Grealish being back will be key because they did lack that flair and ability to cut through sides last night. Well, they didn't really get the opportunity last night. But they will need it here with Luton, how they'll play, how they'll set up. So Doku coming back in, if he's fit enough, would be, again, another bonus. Bernardo Silva did look a little bit flat last night, but that could be said about many of the City players, to be fair. And I think City games just seem to have a rare amount of chaos. They've embraced the chaos that is the Premier League this season at the moment. Goals going in at both ends, and lots of excitement and activity. So yeah, it is a high line. I just think that with what I've seen from some Luton, that they will be prepared to have a go. And Rob Edwards, the man with the lovely hair, Rob Edwards,
beautiful everything. He's a great looking man.
Yeah. Well, that's what
that's what he's looking at. Christmas calendar, Rob Edwards.
Just Rob.
But how they bounce back from that heartbreak in midweek will be interesting. And he's accentuated the positives, and said that they'll give it a go as they did and have done against the bigger sides in the league so far. Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs have all had very, very tough games at the Kenny, and I expect them to give it a go against City as well, which could lead, or I expect to lead to action at both ends.
Good stuff. We're going to stick with this game now and look at player goal minutes. So this is the total accumulated minutes of players' goals in a game. We're looking at Erling Haaland here. If he were to score after 5 minutes, and that was it, it would make up 5. If he scored in the 5th minute, and then the 75th minute, that would make up 80. 75 plus 5, yes. Yeah. Erling Haaland's goal minutes here are 52 to sell, 56 to buy. So the midpoint is 54. Is this going to go by the book? 3, 2, 1. Yes, it is. Haaland was taken off after 80 minutes against Burnley and after 45 minutes at half-time against Bournemouth. So in 2 games where City have basically been kind of home and hosed against weak opposition, he's been taken off, which I think, given that he's played 90 minutes consistently in games recently and isn't scoring, I think there's a fair chance he may come off if things, either if things are going to plan or if things aren't going to plan, unless he's, so like if my thinking is if he's on 0 after 70, and you guys need a late goal in order to get him there, I don't know if he's going to play the 90. It's part of the reason for this. I also, as I said, I've gone under goals, so like,
yeah,
you know, I think Haaland will obviously be heavily odds on to score in this game, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's heavily odds on to score after the 54th minute. Like he's got 53 minutes in which to score prior to that. So yeah, I always think this is a seller's market. So far it's done me okay. One of them at some stage is going to score, has to. Why are you going high here? Because I know you're normally with me here. You're normally a selling man.
I am. Haaland is pretty much my exception to the rule, unfortunately. And I must admit, I was sitting there going, I can't go higher than this. This is a really high line. But here I am going higher than that. To kind of counter your argument, I think you said originally, and I agree with you, that this could well be a tight one with Luton not being blown away by any side, which would mean that Haaland will likely get some longer game minutes. And if they do blow Luton away, there is a fair chance that he'll multi-score. So I think that's why I've kind of gone with it on that side of things, how things are. He's not scored in either of his last 2 games, obviously a terrible drought for him. So he looks very angry at the moment. I think obviously after that, the contentious non-advantage played situation where he kind of blew his top and after the game, and he looked angry last night because he wasn't really getting much of a kick. So I think that he could well look to try and take that out on Luton. And although he hasn't scored in his last 2, he'd scored 6 in the 4 games before that. So we know what Haaland's about. We don't really need to roll off his stats. But he scored multi-goals in 6 of his 20 Premier League and Champions League appearances this season. So that's a fair return for anyone. One thing I would say is that he has only hit this line in 5 of his 15 league appearances this season. So
there you go.
But I fancy he will run us close this week.
Right, Dan?
Yeah, I'm obviously with you. I think actually we had this exact market maybe when you were away or when you were ill.
It was that one, yeah.
And we both went higher and it both came in higher. Yeah. Even though this is a high line, that was a high line. This is Erling Haaland we're talking about. You mentioned his goal drought 2 games. That's so poor. We've seen enough of him now to know that that's absolutely fine. And he's got fire in his belly, as seen by the reaction against Spurs. And I think he's just going to grab this game by the horns and as you said, multi-score. I think like the fact that he's going to score, I think he's going to score more than 1 kind of removes the time element of it. Although again, we've had this earlier in the season when he scored 2 in like 5 and 10, and I missed out even though I went higher. But he can. I said higher in the market before, and I think he can make up those 4 goals on his own here.
Oh my God!
So not only am I going higher, no, I'm not. I'm just going higher.
You're going to make his super multi-minutes as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good shout for anyone at home.
It's going to be high.
Well, I think so, isn't it?
Oh, exercise caution. Right. Tottenham Newcastle is the final game that we're going to be covering here. We've got a couple of markets. They aren't related this time, which is good. So Tottenham over Newcastle supremacy is the first one. Spurs marginal favourites. It's 0 to sell, 0.2 to buy. So the midpoint is 0.1. So you're going to have to really fancy Spurs heavily if you're going to go higher here. Lower is draw or Newcastle. 3, 2, 1. I fancy Spurs.
Thank God. I'm glad you agree with me because I hate this. This is so tough.
Jack, you are siding with Newcastle, and given that the double chance Newcastle draw is heavily odds on.
There's my reasoning. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's the walking wounded derby, isn't it? So see who. Obviously, we're recording this on Thursday morning. Both these sides play Thursday night, so we are a little bit kind of finger in the air and hoping the wind blows in the right direction because anything could happen tonight, which could change our viewpoints. But for me, I say it's a really, really tough game to call. Really tough game to call. that 0.1 is the only thing that swayed me, to be honest, really, into Newcastle, because it is a double chance.
Yeah.
In this particular market, how we're playing it. Should be a great game, admittedly. And I say just could simply come down to a moment in that game, I think, could be the difference between the two. So obviously everyone's loving watching Spurs at the moment, how they go about it, and Newcastle can continue to play how they did, and were very unfortunate as far as that, only a 1-0 win against Man United, when it obviously could have been a lot better than that. So great result for Spurs against City. We'll see how they both get on tonight. But I just think that this is tight enough for me to be a bit of a coin flip. Therefore, if I'm getting 2 results on side, that's the pretty much only reason I'm taking it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Jack very much favouring playing the odds, as we probably should be. But why do you think Spurs are going to win?
Oh, I don't know. You make such a good point.
No,
this is so tight. Like, it is a coin toss, and I'm siding with Spurs. Like, they've scored in every game so far this season. Obviously, you mentioned they played tonight, so. But if you're watching this on Friday and they haven't scored, I'm sorry.
They'll score tonight.
But then, so if they do score, as they have in all of their games so far, like, Newcastle need to equalise or even go one better. I'm ignoring the draw here, right? Because it's like 0 to sell. I really don't know. Sorry if I'm not filling you with confidence on your selection.
I don't care, mate. I'm not listening. I'm looking at Rob Edwards.
Oh, yeah, of course. All right. So there's a smile on your face regardless.
Newcastle's away form, if you take out the 8-0, is just really poor. And that's enough for me. And I know Spurs have injuries. It doesn't really seem to be impacting them anywhere near the level that you'd anticipate that it would. Their performance against City was so impressive. They conceded a lot of chances, but they took theirs incredibly well. And it feels like they could have been knocked by their poor run of form and by the injuries, but I'm not sure necessarily they have been. I think they've been unlucky to drop as many points as they have done. We've just seen them drop from being kind of potential title challenges to probably not being that now. Newcastle, similarly, poor on the road. Yes, they were unlucky in Paris last week, but that was a game where they conceded about 76 expected goals. You look at their game season, if you take out the 8-0 win against Sheffield United, they've been beaten by Bournemouth 2-0, they've been beaten by Brighton 3-1, beaten by City 1-0, and drawn at Wolves and West Ham. So it's not even like they've had particularly hard games on the road. Just the one victory. So
1 win and 8 on the road in the Premier League.
Yeah, so I just got to look at that and just think that Spurs will have enough to get past them, even though I can't work out how there's such a disparity in their form at home and away. Finally, it's booking points. This is bookings, so 10 points for a yellow, 25 points for a red card. Total booking points accumulated in a game. Same match here, Tottenham against Newcastle. 56 to sell, 60 to buy. The line is 58. 58 higher or lower? 3, 2, 1. Chris Kavanagh on the whistle for this one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And I've no stats here whatsoever to back up my view. I just think.
Why is that?
There is no reason.
Right.
I just think it's going to be a high octane game. You've got a few players that have a reputation of getting booked. I just think it's going to be higher. I don't have any stats. It's a gut shot.
Gut shot.
And I'm sure you guys will pick me up on it when it comes in lower.
Well, because mine's more gutty, I guess, than Jack's will be. So I'll go next.
Go for it. You haven't seen my gutty.
But you are right. Did you know that the top 10 most booked players this season, you've got both Anthony Gordon and Bruno Guimaraes in there. So you are right. There is. And we know that Spurs have had some big issues around discipline this season, especially red cards. Chris Kavanagh is my big reason. He is someone who averages few cards per game. He did oversee the Burnley-Sheffield United game recently that was pretty card heavy. But I watched the game last night between Chelsea and Manchester United, and it's quite rare that you see a ref who is quite clearly so unwilling to get his cards out. The first 2 cards in the game were both dissent. So Luke Shaw kicked the ball away, then Garnacho threw the ball away, and they were both in the first 20 minutes. After that, there were so many challenges. I was thinking to myself, sitting there watching it, there are people out there who bought bookings here, and I feel sorry for them. Because there were so many ones where a lot of refs would have given it, and he didn't. He gave a couple of cards very late on for kind of petulant fouls. But you can, there are some refs that they're itching to get in there as soon as possible. I think he is totally the opposite of that. to the extent that he even with the Shaw one, he wasn't going to book him. And Sterling, you could see Sterling saying to him, "He's kicked the ball away," and he was like, "Yeah, I guess I've got to probably give him the yellow for that then."
Doesn't want the paperwork.
Yeah, maybe, but he seems to be one of those refs who doesn't want to dish out cards willy-nilly.
And that's pretty much the reason why I've gone lower here as well. I think George Elec's only got fewer average booking points this season. But I think when you look at the two sides, you think this is like a top of the table clash. It should be quite fiery, quite feisty. Spurs home average 85.83. It's huge as far as booking points is concerned. I know, but don't let that put you off. 35-4, 50.83 against. Higher, but only higher in 3 of 6. So a couple of the games have been so big. Obviously, when you look at averages, you've got to take that into account. So we're getting a 50-50 split on that one. Newcastle's away average 53.33, 28 points for, 25 points against, and once again, 3 of 6 have gone above this line. So as I said, we're needing 6 yellow cards or a variant thereof for this one to be higher. So we've got loads on our side going lower. So they are ranked 5th and 6th as far as disciplinary is concerned in the table. But say Chris Kavanagh is the referee, and that's the swinging factor for me as well. 8 Premier League games, an average of exactly 50. Again, which is not a bad average, to be fair, but when you look at that game you mentioned is the one that's really spiked his average up. Yeah, he's only gone higher in 2 of his 8 Premier League games this season, that being one of them. And he's not got a very strong record as far as when he's refereed both these sides, which I quite like that. I know it's historical, but there seems to be a little bit of a trend as far as referees and certain teams, I guess, certain players. I think that's something that we don't take too much into consideration. You've got a player that you go, we've got players that we hate watching or go, well, if I was a referee, he'd be getting it. These guys are human beings, aren't they? They've got that side of them, and you see them like go regularly for it. But Bournemouth against Newcastle, he was in charge of that one earlier. I think it was only last month, wasn't it? 2 yellow cards for Bournemouth, 1 for Newcastle. He took Newcastle, Manchester City in the League Cup in September, 2 each that day. Newcastle Arsenal in May last season, so an end of season top of the table clash, very similar to this one, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
2 yellow cards for Newcastle, 1 yellow card for Arsenal in that one. And he also took Brentford Newcastle in April, where he gave 0 for Brentford and 2 for Newcastle, all lower. And the last time he was referee of a Spurs game was in May 2022. At the mighty Carrow Road, some would say the Mecca of football. Many wouldn't. And he gave 4 yellow cards, 3 for the Canaries, all harsh, I might add, and 1 for Spurs. So we're going lower.
Amazing research there. Love that. I'll be feeling really nervous if I'd gone higher. Cheers, everyone, for watching. That brings this week's Higher or Lower to a close. We do have a new customer offer. If you click on the link below in the description, bet 25, get 50, and hopefully you get a range of free bets there. Maybe you can follow us in if you fancy any of Jack's picks or my picks or Dan's picks. Remember, with both Spreadex and Sporting Index, losses can exceed your initial deposit. But do check out both sites and sign up with loads of markets available across sports ahead of the weekend. Check out oddschecker for all your fixed odds betting needs. WhoScored for all of your stat stuff as well. Say goodbye to Dan, who's going off to Australia, so he'll be back hopefully in the new year. Sam Ty will be here next week, so join us then. In the meantime, enjoy the football, and please do ensure that you're gambling responsibly.